It's mysterious and dangerous.
I can see why you told me to take out my tinfoil hat.
Wait a second. This is all well-documented, declassified information. The game, man, the game.
Good morning and welcome to Brood Awakenings, your favorite morning drive-by podcast. As always, we've got a piping fresh show for you this morning, evening, or whatever time you're tuning in. Today, we're talking to Claire Wakefield, an indie game developer out of Huntsville, Alabama.
Glad to be here, Grant.
Thanks for taking time to chat with us, Claire.
Sure.
Well, I want to cut right to it. You've been working at the 7-Eleven and coding in your free time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't help but notice when you pulled into the parking lot here at the studio, you were behind the wheel of a pretty new shiny Corvette. Did the 7-Eleven bump up their wages recently?
Not exactly.
Think you could put in a word for me?
You probably don't want my reference. I did not leave on good terms.
Oh, you left.
Yeah, I opened the store one morning and I decided to quit. I was just really dealing with a lot of stress. The job was taking up so much time, and Bungee Bounce was doing really, really well. That was my first game. And I had enough money in the bank to make rent for a month or two, so I left. I finger painted a sign that read, "I assure you we were open," a la Clerks, and I walked.
That's a risky move, but I'm guessing it paid off?
No risk, no reward, right?
So I hear.
So I spent the newfound free time hawking Bungee Bounce to Android and the iPhone, and I got lucky. So here I am.
Now, you'll have to help me out here. I don't play video games too often.
Well, we have to fix that.
I had an NES when I was a kid, but my brother used to make me be player 2 all the time.
I think a lot of people's brothers made them be player 2.
Yeah, but get this. We had Super Mario Brothers.
A good vintage.
Well, I really wouldn't know. See, my brother never lost.
Super Mario Brothers isn't really a competitive video game.
Well, what I mean is he never died.
Oh, I gotcha.
No. I'm serious. I would sit there, controller in hand, waiting for him to slip up and fall into a pit or something. And he never did. He would start on the first stage and run straight through the game and never die.
You know, there are YouTubers who do speed runs like that for a living. Your brother could probably make a killing.
I don't think it was about speed running, really. Not for him. I think he just loved to torture me. You know, at some point, though, he stopped using the warp zones and just played through every single level.
A real sadist, huh?
Absolutely.
So I guess you're not a big gamer?
Nah. Really, don't get me wrong, though. After my brother went to college, he took the NES with him. So I was able to talk my parents into upgrading to the Super Nintendo. I wore out the controllers, but I ended up selling it for books in college. Maybe I should see what I can dig up on eBay or something.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, you need to try Bungee Bounce. It's a classic side-scrolling 2D platformer, and honestly, I ripped some mechanics and ideas straight from several classic Nintendo games, so it should feel familiar. I've got a soft spot in my heart for Mario. Couldn't help myself.
Well, I guess I've been needing something to do while I'm in the restroom.
The struggle is real.
All right. I know you've got something you want to promote while you're here.
What makes you say that?
Come on. No one agrees to do these things unless they're either narcissistic in the extreme or they want publicity of some sort for a project they're working on. You don't really strike me as the preening type.
All right. I am actually publishing a new app in 2 weeks.
See, I knew. So, what is it this time?
Well, I love games.
Sure.
But I also love mystery, mystique, intrigue, a good conspiracy theory, kind of like the X-Files.
So is it some sort of crime solver?
Not quite. Actually, most of the mystery surrounding this game has more to do with an urban legend than any of the gameplay itself.
I'm listening.
I'm calling the game Polybius Portable.
Okay.
I was hoping for a bigger reaction than that.
Well, Look, I told you I'm not much of a gamer, so what's the significance of Polybius Portable?
Well, okay, let's start at the top. What do you know about Polybius?
Nothing.
Okay, get your tinfoil hat ready.
Don't leave home without it.
Okay, so you know that our government has gotten up to some interesting projects over the past 60, 70 years or so.
Sure, men staring at goats and whatnot, maybe?
Oh, so you know a little bit about MK Ultra. Good.
Only what Hollywood's taught me.
Oh, that's a start. So MK Ultra got its start before it was ever called MK Ultra.
Right.
All right, so you know how the U.S. borrowed several Nazi scientists through World War II and even kept collecting them like Pokemon after the end of the war?
Well, the Werner von Braun Center is about an hour from here, so sure, I guess.
So that was a little project called Operation Paperclip. And the purpose wasn't just to keep some of the best and brightest in Europe from riding the lightning for war crimes, but also to make sure that some of the more unsavory data they collected wasn't lost forever. I'm not sure if you know much about the ethics involved in using human test subjects.
Hey guys, I don't usually like to cut into my own interviews, but I feel like I should let you know the next couple of minutes are pretty intense. So if you're squeamish or otherwise disturbed by descriptions of grotesque events, maybe you should skip ahead about 2 minutes.
So I'm sure you've learned a thing or two. I guess you know that there are some pretty tight restrictions when it comes to running tests on human beings. Even with all the proper waivers formed, sometimes the law prevents researchers from finding out what happens when we're subjected to unusually cruel circumstances.
And these scientists ran a few of these tests?
More than a few. You have to remember, these guys were researchers working for the Nazis. They had a steady supply of test subjects who could not say no. They ran experiments that researchers today could never get clearance for and might even lose funding if they even mentioned having a casual interest. The Nazis tried transplanting bones, muscles, nerve tissues.
What's so bad about a transplant?
No anesthesia.
Oh, gotcha.
So these scientists would do these really disgusting, twisted things like sewing twins together to try to make conjoined twins, two people into one. They ran tests to see how many times a child could be hit on the head before suffering serious brain damage.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They experimented to see how long humans could survive in freezing water. They tried using humans for other various immunization trials. At one point, they infected over 1,200 people with malaria and then tried to treat it, but most of those people died.
I don't know what all this has to do with a video game, though.
I'm getting to that. So eventually, Operation Paperclip fractured off into smaller cells and projects, and one of those was MK Ultra. Kind of see where I'm going?
Not sure.
Okay, so MK Ultra, a program infamous for running experiments on unwitting and unaware subjects, was born out of a previous project that was actually founded on collecting that information.
I can see why you told me to take out my tinfoil hat.
Wait a second, this is all well-documented, declassified information, so no tinfoil yet.
Oh.
But those experiments, as horrible as they were, yielded some medically significant data. I mean, how else do you find out how long and at what temperature a child can survive in freezing water?
All right.
So MK Ultra took the ball and ran with it. Various powers that be within the organization were convinced that humans had these latent abilities, that human consciousness could expand and that we could achieve awareness and make the mind the ultimate weapon.
Hence the goats.
Sort of. Over the course of about 15, maybe 20 years, if you don't accept the timeline of the program to be exactly honest, MK Ultra operatives dosed more than a few people, some with their consent, some without even their knowledge, all to try and collect some more valuable data that would never have been cleared for research in 1,000 years.
All right, so how does this tie into your new game?
We're nearly there. MK Ultra was officially disbanded in the mid-70s, but more than a few reports pop up of some very Ultra-esque operations happening long after the program officially ended. The reports we specifically care about are from 1981. Grant, I know you weren't a big gamer, but surely you visited an arcade once or twice.
Yeah, when I was a kid. My brother used to drag me when my mom left him in charge.
Did you see very many G-men?
I'm sorry?
G-men, you know.
I guess it's time for the tinfoil hat.
Maybe, but several reports indicate that a small number of arcades were teeming with G-men for about a month in 1981.
Why?
Well, the official report is that a handful of three-letter agencies wanted to make sure that these arcades weren't somehow using video games as a form of gambling, laundering the activity, so to speak.
We see how well that worked.
True.
So, what's the unofficial story?
I couldn't wait for you to ask. All right, so there are some rumors that line up perfectly with the time frame of the MIB haunting the local arcades. See, for a little while in 1981, a new video game called Polybius kept popping up in arcades around the Portland area. The cabinet was black, plain, pretty boring, but the game. Supposedly it was so addictive that lines would form, stretch through the arcade, out the door, and down the street, and players would brawl over whose turn it was to play.
Sounds like a great game.
Maybe, maybe not. Being addictive was just step one of the psychological manipulation behind Polybius. Players reported things like nausea, insomnia, nightmares, and even vivid hallucinations after playing the game.
I can see why it was pulled after a month.
Sure, but Grant, you're a smart guy. Care to guess which machines the G-men were most interested in?
I'm guessing Polybius.
Bingo.
Alright, so what? Some three-letter agency was using a video game to run psychological experiments on unwitting arcade patrons?
That's the theory.
Seems like a wild theory.
Wilder than men dosed on LSD staring at goats?
Okay, but here's my question. If this game was so nefarious, why are you making it into an app?
First off, it's an app inspired by the game and not the actual game itself. Second, that's part of the appeal, right? It's mysterious and dangerous, but not the kind of dangerous that could get you killed. It's the kind of dangerous that feels exhilarating and exciting without actually posing any significant risk, sort of like a roller coaster.
I get motion sick, though.
Well, it's probably a good thing you've never played Polybius then.
Hold on. Let's put a pin in this for a second and go back to what you just said a moment ago. You said this app would be inspired by the game, but not the game itself. What do you mean by that?
Well, outside the handful of folks who potentially played Polybius, the real one in the arcades back in 1981, no one has actually ever played the game. All we know about it comes from descriptions we've gotten from those lucky or unlucky enough to play the game originally.
So, really, your app is more of an homage, I suppose.
Exactly.
So, what kind of game was Polybius?
Gotta remember that we don't actually know much about it. Mostly it's just secondhand info that's getting close to 40 years old at this point, but from what we can tell so far, it might have been something close to Tempest. Did you ever play that?
Some.
It was sort of a 3D shooter. Well, as close to a 3D shooter as you could get in the 80s. Think something along the lines of Space Invaders. You know that one, right?
I do know that one.
Good, okay. So it's something along the lines of Space Invaders. If you were actually in the cockpit of the ship and firing toward the aliens, instead of controlling everything from the outside looking in. Does that make sense?
Sort of.
Well, that's what I was trying to capture with Polybius Portable.
No, side effects? What were they again? Headache, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea?
Decapitation, dismemberment, death.
Thought so. That escalated quickly.
Okay, I'll say this. Any psychoactive side effects from my games are purely accidental. Disclaimer. But I'll tell you what, Grant, I'll upload the APK to Dropbox for you, and you can download an early copy, play it before anybody else.
APK?
Got an intern?
Yeah, why?
Get them to do it for you.
Hey guys, Grant here. I hope you've enjoyed the Polybius pilot. This is new to us, and we're gauging fan interest. If you like it and need another audio drama in your life, we have the next episode recorded and most of Season 1 scripted out. Let us know what you think. Find us on Facebook at Tape Noise Podcasts, and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, Dan here, and thanks so much for listening. We're really excited to hear your thoughts, so please tell us what you think, and if you enjoyed it, please tell your friends. Thanks, and we'll see you real soon.